Just put the agenda back up one more time. Thank you. All right, it is 4 o'clock on, what is today? March 23rd. We will call the Planning and Zoning meeting to order. Roll call. Heather Lind is out today. Steve Stevens. Jason Marufo. David Urich. Here. Ryan Hill. Here. And Joey Edwards here. Roll call the Lake County Commissioners. Elsa Tharp is absent today. Andrew Lee. Here. And Matt Bullock. I know Matt Bullock is available online today. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
We have nothing.
And may I, if anyone's had time to review them, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the March 9th Planning and Zoning meeting?
I move to approve the minutes for March 9th.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Updates from staff, please.
So I think I talked about this at our last meeting, but the public hearing on the Wildfire Resiliency Code is coming up on the 30th, a week from today. It will be at 4 o'clock here in the boardroom. The Board of Review is the advisory board, so this is just an update to let you know that it's happening. Recommendation to go ahead and adopt the Colorado Code and accompanying map. We talked about it a little bit last meeting. There are a couple of areas of the county that are not designated on the map, particularly West Park and an area between Mountain View and Poplar. So everything else in the county is either in low, moderate, or high intensity. So this will result in new construction, additions, 500 feet or greater, roofs that are being either replaced or 25% of the surface area being repaired, or siding, 25% area or greater. Needing to have hardening requirements, non-combustible type materials, and on our exterior, things like eaves, roofs, gutters, variety of doors and windows.
That'll require a full 2-hour fire.
A hardening type of, so it's the type of material.
Right.
And then zones, fire zones. There's 3 different zones surrounding the structure to create defensible space and help with the spread or injury from wildfire. So there'll be new requirements coming up for, and they'll be administered through the building department, and then the planning departments will be looking at this, like the zones during plan review, and helping to make sure that zones are meeting the requirements of the code. So just kind of an update, if it is adopted on the 30th, it will become effective the 1st of July. So that's one update, and then the I-codes are on the way to being for the 2024, repealing the 2018 I-codes and adopting the 2024 building codes, and energy code is on the way by the Board of Review. And we're looking for that to be effective by the end of June. So just a little bit of update from your adjacent partners in the building department, things that are going on around the department. We do have some development applications that are currently in review. We've got several group camps that are in various stages of completeness review right now. We have a front-facing portal and page on the website for community planning and development under land use that speaks to the moratorium. So there is information on the moratorium for the public there. There's a public input portal, and there's also a way to sign up to continue to be informed about the moratorium. We are working on perfecting the framework, the project management piece. So we're looking at integration with our different interdepartment coordination as well as our exterior partners and stakeholders in developing their input and assistance and kind of task management. And we are starting to dive into creating our peer review and best practices matrix. So we're looking at different adjacent and rural mountain communities, kind of in scale with us, and how their codes address these issues. And so we are going into the research phase of just pulling all of that quantitative data and then doing interviews, as you suggested, Dave, and aligning with that we're actually asking those planning departments how those regulations are working. And then the other big exciting, really exciting news that we have is that we extended an offer to another planner, a planner one, and she has accepted. So Rachel Pollock is finishing her master's degree. She'll graduate on May 8th, and she'll be onboarding with us in Lake County on May 18th, and she's joining us from Chicago. So we will all be excited for her to dive into the work. She's very enthusiastic. She accepted the offer on the spot. So, yay. There is help on the way, and we're really excited. We did have a strong second candidate as well. Maybe next year, we'll see if we even broaden our capacity a little bit more. And finally, seems like I didn't think I had so many updates. We are starting to work on our job description for our building professional that will also add additional support and capacity in the department. So, we're really working on e-permitting. The city and the county are using the same platform, and this is will be readily used for building and land use and code enforcement and potentially septic system permitting as well. So we have our first training session on cloud permit with the building department tomorrow. And so we're really excited about that. So we have a lot of things happening. And I think anything else, Melissa, that I haven't thought of?
I think that covers it.
It's pretty broad.
There's a lot of moving parts right there.
We have a lot of moving parts.
Any old business today? Then we will roll straight into new business. Take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna kind of set this up in a similar fashion to last time. We sent you a link earlier in the week that included the section 2 of the plan. And so I'm just gonna walk you through it kind of gently, hitting the high points. Hopefully you get a chance to read it if you haven't already. I don't think any of these items are really things that we're looking at modifying, but if you have thoughts about that, this would be that time. We're gonna go into and talk a little bit about how our goals and strategies are set up, because we're gonna send you a bunch of information for you to review before our next meeting to do that. So, can go to the next slide. So this section really has some good information about how we built the plan, I would say. And it speaks to kind of the flavor of who we are in terms of boom or bust. And having read many comp plans and lived here, it's like, it really struck me how unique we are. And so, kind of setting the ground of, the many times we've, from gold to silver to molybdenum, we really have experienced dramatic shifts in our economy. And so what these cycles have taught us, some really clever ways of really looking at how all of these were driven by outside demand and outside decisions that were made, from the Silver Act that changed the currency, and the global economy from molybdenum that also, changed our community. And so that's a piece of the resiliency, right, that we definitely embody here. So there's a lot more to that piece, but I thought that was a nice way to put it. And what that left behind is our built environment, which some of, important things, like we got West Park out of it, when it had that, they moved. That really wasn't because of the bus, but, it moved from Climax or even further back, the Tabor Opera House. But these are old and they're aging, along with our infrastructure. So really looking at like that's a big part of our challenge is how do we maintain and deal with a lot of different maintenance over this 150 years. So what's been constant is, we're still here. There's still people living in Leadville. And so what that requires of us as we move forward into the future.
So,
Yeah, go for it.
the damn thing, but living at 10,200 feet, that's Leadville. A lot of the counties less than that. I've also seen reference to 10,000 feet somewhere.
Yeah,
I appreciate, how do we, I guess it's just not important enough to mess with, but,
well, it's a
because I
good
like
point.
the, I mean, it's on the signage when you come into town, and here's where the population center is for the county.
Yeah,
But half the population's here, isn't it?
About half, yes,
Oh, pardon me?
about half.
Yeah.
but half is not. Half is
Yeah,
below
but I mean-
10,000 feet.
If you try to include everything, it just gets to be too wordy and it dilutes the message, I think.
Do whatever it takes to make a living at a high altitude mountain town with, pretty character and, you really start going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that
As
we
it gets the
take,
point across.
I think it was kind of like identifying, how many of us refer to living at 10-2? I mean, I think it's in our vernacular. I think it's kind of how we readily identify too, of, that. So I think definitely when we get into like the technical review of like, things like, what's our snow load and things like that, those are the times that, we really lean into, the different kind of elevations. But I think that as a whole and, kind of creating our story, I think it kind of universally resonates that, we live at 10-2, and I think it's just something that we kind of like do totally appreciate that there are times and spaces and ways that it really does, there's benefit in looking at when you're at specifically different altitudes and measuring that from different perspectives. But I'm wondering if this just kind of is meant to kind of do that.
This is
Well,
imaging stuff more than anything. I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna object to it necessarily.
but maybe you are.
I'm not objecting to it, no.
I think
I only live at 9,500, so I'm not quite there, but yeah. But I think we all understand what that implies, I guess the implication.
What if we said living at high elevation?
I don't think that's good enough. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the highest incorporated city in the country, yeah.
All of them maybe beat us out, but.
I mean, you could almost say, in context to the whole page here, willing to do whatever it takes to make a living in a boom town or a boom bust cycle town, or, cause it's, I guess the point you're getting at is that we get really high highs and really low lows. It's like feast or famine here, and I feel like we're in between steps 2 and 3 of that very first section there, so.
Sure.
Pointing out that, focusing on the altitude's one thing, but also like the idea that this comp plan shapes part of how we approach those booms and busts, I guess.
Well, in the altitude here, the extreme altitude is a big part of our comp plan. It's a big part of what makes it so difficult up here in many different ways. I don't see 10-2 as being disparaging toward Twin Lakes.
No, let's just move on.
Okay. Deal.
I do appreciate you bringing it up, because in many ways we're trying to make sure we address
put an
the
asterisk.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think there's a later comment about making sure Twin Lakes gets a mention somewhere. Okay,
Okay, well, keep us honest here. Anything else, related to this? All right, next page. All right, so, and then addressing really, here we are in a transition. And I appreciate the narrative around this, these changes that we're going through. That, that we're growing, yes, you drive into town, especially from the north and going south, and you see new houses and so on, but the reality of that is more complicated as we got into there. And so the actual full-time, number of full-time residents has declined, as we all know. So who's living here is changing, and that's in flux, so, and I think this really lays it out very clearly, recognizing that our lower income households are leaving, our actual income levels are going up. Which makes it even more complicated to look at the fact that our school enrollment's declining and our families, our working families are leaving. So I think as a document, because people will read this who are shopping, particularly to develop in this community, and really sort of lay that picture out clearly, I think is helpful. So,
And I think it's important to lay it out very plainly, and that actually hits all of our current issues.
All right, next page. So if we stay the course, here's the bullet point list that I think we all really appreciate. I won't read it to you, but you had a chance to read it, and it does get into really all of our major challenges. Any thoughts about that?
I just had an aside on this, it's just kind of, adding some background color. As a new dad, one thing that I noticed is that there is, talking about new families, high income, low income didn't matter, there's really no options for things like daycare here. And the other thing that was really unfortunate is I have a very tough time just walking my boy on his stroller because at least on that side of town, there's no sidewalks anywhere.
That's throughout, as it is a ongoing problem.
And I was like, just as a dad wanting to be outside with my kid, it's just awful trying to walk my kid on a sidewalk. And if I were moving here, low income, high income, it's like, I don't wanna walk. And just because there's cars everywhere and I'm walking on the street. So just,
Great observation.
little aside,
Perspective.
Walkability is not
it's horrible.
top notch.
It's
You
like,
get the
Which is
mineral
interesting
benefits, like
because
that's
one of the
it.
things everybody loves about Leadville is that you can walk most everywhere.
But
Yeah,
you're
but
walking
walk
on,
on-
you're
walk
walking
down
on
Mountain
main
View.
streets,
Without getting,
Yeah.
coming this close to getting creamed on every blind turn, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the sidewalks that are there, it's like, I was counting, I was like, there's maybe a sidewalk on one block, but then there's nothing for several blocks, that one sidewalk, it's all destroyed, and
Yeah.
with the stroller, it's like, this is absolutely horrible.
There's some sidewalks that are worse than like dirt roads. Like,
Yeah.
if you're like, if there was no sidewalk here, it would be easier.
But I was thinking about it recently, it's like, low income, high income, it's like, just as a family would even think about moving here, it's like, there's nowhere for me to walk.
Yeah, we never even used a stroller, we basically used that Thule chariot that tows behind the bike.
Yeah.
And then you get a bicycle wheel for the front of it, and that was the only thing we ever used, like you couldn't push a stroller around on most of the roads, It's
Yeah,
like-
but when I go down to Frisco, it's like there's sidewalks everywhere, but here it's like, man, I hate having to try and walk my kid just in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Maybe aging infrastructure and public facilities, maybe it's captured a little bit in that.
We definitely have action items,
Yeah.
the goals,
and
addressing.
action items.
But it was just something so simple that when you think about inviting families in, something as simple as that I never would have thought of.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah, those safe routes are so important.
Yeah.
To be able to have that connectivity and walkability, it really is important.
Now, I read through this presentation before, but there's not an alternative to the if we stay the course here, is there? As we move through this,
Is there an alternative?
is there an alternative presented? I don't remember seeing one.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Well, they're not in this document per se.
Because a lot of the things that people
Yeah.
consider to be alternatives, like installing sidewalks throughout, are just really not, they're outside of the possibility currently.
Well, what this does is set us up for, this isn't who we wanna be. And so then we have all that, the goals and that strategies and action items
Okay.
that support things like sidewalks, continuous sidewalks.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Next page, please. Did you let Jason in?
Yes.
Welcome, Jason.
Sorry I'm late. I was joining the Teams meeting, which was the link from the other email for the February or the April 6th meeting, I guess. So I apologize.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
we'll make sure to check the April 6th. It is in the calendar invite. It must have got sent out with an automatic. We'll make sure that we take off that Teams meeting, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I guess it got set up that way, so.
Yeah, and so here was a good capsule of the fears that we heard in all of the many conversations and surveys that we did. So I don't, again, I won't read to you, but it, I thought really captured well a lot of what we heard.
Consistency wise, I get for accuracy, the third bullet point is in Spanish, cause that's how it was presented to you guys. It feels like a little bit of a targeted, like someone, not me, probably not anyone in this room, but I could see someone interpreting that in a way that youth straying down the wrong path is more of a problem with
For
the
Hispanics.
Hispanic community.
Yeah.
And just from like a sensitivity standpoint and trying to like not piss anyone off or, you know, I feel like maybe just leaving that in as an English bullet point, or we do the whole thing in both languages, like from it's just weird from a consistency standpoint for me, and I feel like maybe there's just enough people who can
I
take
caught
that the
that
wrong
same
way.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good observation, consideration.
Almost like that particular issue stands out more for Spanish speaking community.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost an unfair characterization to have that be the only one that's, you know, and I get it, like that's how it's just been relayed, but I could see somebody taking it the wrong way.
Yeah. Other thoughts?
I would agree with that.
I don't know, it's interesting, the second to last one, the gentrification quote, is interesting because what I see more and more and more as we continue to get more and more active in the community is it's the second homeowners and the people who are striving to live here full-time that are contributing to the community. They're not taking things the way, they're the ones that are actually contributing and taking part of making things happen. So I wanna be careful of the way that sounds too, because some of the biggest go-getters that I'm dealing with in the city and the county both are people that maybe have been up here part-time for a long time and their goal is to be up here full-time, but they're much more active seemingly than a lot of the full-timers that we have. So I wanna be careful not to isolate them, given the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a good point, I can write similar things,
It's just something I see,
right,
that's all.
right. And part of this, the tricky part, right, is that using people's language
Yeah,
that,
can't really.
yeah, have been given to us and their perceptions. right? So, but maybe there's ways to counterbalance that.
Right.
Great, I think.
Yeah, no, these ideas have always been around, and you hear them, of course.
Maybe to that end, the last bullet point, the Leadville will not be Leadville anymore, it'll become Vale or Aspen. I understand what it means in the sense of people being priced out, but when I look at Vale or Aspen, they do have very good schools
They have sidewalks.
and sidewalks. Yeah, it's like,
Space.
I understand the whole priced out thing, but like, there are still good things from those types of communities, it's not all bad.
Right, and it is, I have to work with people from Vale and Aspens at times, so it's sort of like, I feel bad sometimes just being like, oh, the last thing we wanna do is be you guys, you know, it's.
Well, and the biggest difference between Vale and Aspen and Leadville is that Vale and Aspen can build housing on the ski resorts. That's what made those developed in such a different way. Leadville can't do that, but that's really the biggest difference. If Leadville had allowed private development adjacent to Ski Cooper, we would be a very different place.
Right,
That's just the way it works.
it might have even ended up in Eagle County though.
Right? Right. But that's the way those towns developed, they developed because they had a different relationship with the ski industry.
You know, you could argue Vale wouldn't even be there if it weren't for the ski industry.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a ranch.
So how far do we water this down to not offend anybody?
Right, yeah, I mean,
Well, and that's true too. You don't, we do, these are the perspectives that you hear all the time.
Real
sometimes the
comments.
truth
Yes,
isn't
sir.
pretty,
Yeah, there are definitely not necessarily quotes, but the following are community responses
Yeah.
to the question.
Yeah,
It
these
kind of is unfiltered.
But to that end, it's like some of the bullet points up top, they're not directly targeting specific people where the last two are. It's like, you know, to your point, Joey, it's like, that's a very targeted message that second homeowners do not contribute to this community. Because people don't know that, and the fact that we're targeting specifically Vale or Aspen, that's very targeted, whereas above, you can take those and apply them to any other community, but these, it's like, why are we targeting those?
Well, we
That's a
probably
good
have
perspective.
hundreds of comments, so we can always look at different ones.
and there's, oh, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
There's no rule that says these can't be wordsmithed a little bit, you know, they can still be a response,
Yeah,
even if it's not a word for word.
Yeah, it's like, I fear that Leadville will not be Leadville anymore, like, cut it right at that.
It will become a, or will, you know, characteristics of a neighboring community, or like the.
Well, just taking that last sentence off does it without
Yeah,
offending
Sure.
anybody.
gentrification, pricing out the people who live here, cut it right at that.
Yeah, exactly right. It's the second half of both of those that cause a problem. The first half is, for all intents and purposes, true and certainly a local perspective. Yeah, it's a good point.
in some ways they're absentee homeowners, you know? The problem, the fear is that there are people who don't really engage, but there are many who do, so
Well, and it's,
something.
you know, they're worried about second homeowners and short-term rentals and things like that. Short-term rentals in the city are on a 3-year wait list now, so.
Yeah.
That problem has been addressed.
Yeah.
That perceived problem has been addressed.
Okay, well, I think we wrote that down. So appreciate the thoughts. Anything else?
Does it note anywhere in here, I think the 10-year outlook is to have something like a 5% increase in population. It's very, very slight, the population increase. Is that noted anywhere or?
I think in our housing section.
Yeah,
Because the idea is that we're growing too much and
Right.
for all intents and purposes, the number is static.
Yeah.
right, it's more demographic that's changing
Absolutely.
than our population. Yeah, that's definitely taking into account in our housing needs assessment. And we're getting ready to update, our housing action plan and update our housing needs assessment. So it really is captured in, when we get into the topical areas, which will be our third round.
Yeah, so we'll get those shortly, and we're gonna forward those to you, so you have more time on that.
Yeah, Fierce was a really powerful thing when we were going out and interviewing, different groups in the community. And it's the other thing that I would just think is I think that a lot of people put trust in us and being able to be very candid about what their fears were. And so I think really great information and thoughts tonight, but we also want to make sure that we're really thoughtful and careful with the trust in, that we've built with the community and in hearing them. So hopefully there's a way to kind of marry that together a little bit too. So.
Alright. Okay. Community and transition. So there are several things. I pulled out some important thoughts from that section. These trends are real, but they aren't inevitable, which I think is a bit of what we've been talking about. What choices we want to make going forward in the future. So, what's different now is the decision to get ahead of those forces. So, for example, the idea that Climax could close or that it could slow down significantly, and how do we want to be proactive about that, since we can see that coming. Maybe in the past we couldn't see these decisions coming, but we do now. So how do we plan for that? Recognizing again that people want to stay here. Even though you don't have sidewalks, you are here, Ryan, trying to figure it out. And we want that growth. We want to retain, we want to draw families. We recognize we need a more diversified economy, better infrastructure, and housing choices. So, and how do we protect our natural environment, given the popularity we have and the pressure we have on the outdoors. So.
The first sentence in the third paragraph, what we're choosing, the community said clearly, we don't accept this trajectory. It feels like we're just like everything's horrible, like everything's going bad, like there's no balance there, like not everything that is.
Well, then there is a perception there's a perception out there that that's the case. I think it's a small but very audible.
Yeah.
Well, and this is our 10-year long-range plan, and kind of, a little bit different of kind of existing conditions. And as we get into the action items, we really are quick to identify that a lot of these are continuing the course of some really great work. So absolutely, there has been progress made in a lot of areas. But just keeping in mind, this is our long-range advisory document that really creates the framework for all of our future work. So absolutely, to your point, there is some great progress being made. And when we get into that next part, we really do recognize where it's continuing on or keeping momentum going. So there's definitely great things afoot. This is a little bit
How might you
longer
alter
range.
that?
I would just remove this part right there. Just, we don't accept this trajectory. It feels real weird to me for some reason, like pump the brakes on everything, do a 180 on everything.
Yeah,
It's pretty like absolute.
yeah.
Yeah, it still reads well with
Yeah.
that removed.
Yeah.
You can just continue everything else.
People want to stay here, they want their kids to be able to stay here.
Mhm.
So instead, after the colon, it would
Yep.
start with people?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
The only other thing that would maybe make that a little bit more consistent is the second paragraph. What's different now is decision to get ahead of these forces working to change us. It almost seems like whether we did or whether we didn't, that the decision was not there in the past. And just a little wordsmithing is, what's different now is the decision, let's see, to get ahead, working to change us into a place where we want to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Make that a positive, right?
Yeah.
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 That's it.
Hey, just so you guys know I'm here, I agree with all these sentiments. It'd be great if it was a lot more positive. Right now, it sounds like, sounds bitter. And if we could make it more positive, man, I'm all for it. So I like everybody's comments regarding making it a little bit more positive.
Another thing that you could add that would be a little bit of a positive, but I read it in the first paragraph. Lake County's future has been shaped by outside forces, commodity prices, federal policy. I would say market booms and market collapses, because one of the things that truly defined Leadville was the boom, not the bust.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or you could just keep it,
I would just add that to that, yeah.
to simplify, you could say market cycles.
That's capturing
But the
is-
boom
Yeah.
and the bust, market booms and busts, whatever. It certainly has done both, and it's done both drastically.
Yeah, I think what they're capturing there, even when we were touring the mining museum, is just, the deep impact of Climax closures and shutdowns. So I think
Oh, yeah.
that is, but I think the booms have been, kind of created that roller coaster effect, so good point.
Heck, we might need to start mining for silver again on the east side.
You have the prices keep going.
It did just drop. Yeah.
Very good, great point. Sometimes we're so in the work that we don't, it's great to have some fresh eyes to kind of hear that, maybe there is a little bit of a negative tone. And, actually this is creating a future of our making.
anything else? Yeah.
Okay. Did you need a action plan? The other part of what you received in the package, and did you have any, before we move any other comments on our story? The other part of the materials that you received that I sent out were just the engagements review and summary, which a lot of you intended, and so it's just a companion doc that will highlight just the robust engagement that was done through the process. And then we are preparing, I think we've got an example here.
The one on the left first,
Okay.
infrastructure.
Okay. So the next item for round 3 that you're going to receive from us is going to be looking at the action team review. The action teams, this is the result of them meeting about 15 different times to work on the different topical areas. And so this demonstrates what the matrix will look like that you'll receive on each of the different disciplines. And this is infrastructure and transportation. And just to give you an overview, when you receive this, what we're looking at is a couple different items on these. It's really, how do you feel about using these to make land use decisions? So particularly goal 1 and strategy, and the strategy under them. So the goal and strategies in throughout the matrix are really designed to be what we're looking at when we're considering either quasi-judicial land use applications or we're doing legislative changes. So these goals and strategies are really what development is going to really focus on and highlight. And this is what staff and the board and the planning commission are looking at together to find that first finding in every application, every rezone, every legislative process that we do is, are we staying consistent with the goals and strategies of our comprehensive plan? So those are, just so as you're looking at those, look at those. Are those resonating with you? Are they clear? Is there anything that's unclear about them? And then the action items are really broken down into, this is our work plan. This is our implementation of this long-range plan. The long-range plan is really the framework that you'll start being able to make budgetary decisions, where you'll be able to build your priorities from in alignment with this being, this is how our community is going to hold advisory boards and decision makers accountable for the long range plan of the community, the city and the county. So when you look at the action items, there will be a timeline. So we're either looking at this as a short, mid, or long timeline, and who's the main lead on it, and what are the funding options that we can leverage in order to make these things come to fruition. So, number one is the city and county should prepare consolidated street, driveways, sidewalk, curb and gutter, bar ditch, and other stormwater and snow management standards. So to your point, like as we get in, we've identified that, you know, these are the things we need to expand and upgrade and maintain those infrastructures like streets and alleys and sidewalks and trail connections and bike paths for that whole connectivity mobility that you were just talking about. So this is really showing us our implementation plan. So you'll receive these. We're asking right now just the projects. We want to make sure that this one we believe is, as it states, the final draft. So tomorrow you'll be receiving at least the infrastructure and transportation and potentially the growth and land use. We think maybe both of those are ready to come out. Now, growth and land use may not have the timeline, the lead support, and the funding options totally perfected in it yet. So we're just waiting to see how close those are to being ready so that we can roll them out. So the next review is really gonna get into looking at these, and we're gonna try to roll them out. We were thinking this one, the infrastructure and transportation, and growth and land use first, and then follow that up with natural resources, economy, and this is infrastructure and facilities and community services. So just to make it like not such a heavy lift, but this is how to kind of interpret that, and we can scroll down a little bit if you want to kind of look. So I think each one of them have about anywhere from 3 to 4 goals, and so then keep going, get to to goal 2, keep going. So then we get into goal 2. So there will be more, and each one of the topical areas, you know, has this action plan surrounding it too. Any questions, thoughts about these? But this really gets into how are you going to make decisions? How are you going to prioritize projects? Whether, you know, how do you look at budgeting priorities, things like that. And then how do you review development and policy based on staying true to the comprehensive plan, and then really creates that implementation. And so the planning departments will really also be responsible for stewarding the plan and helping kind of navigate it to ensure that we're staying on task with the implementation.
Sorry, could you scroll back up to the very top again?
Sure. Let's get you up to the top.
Okay, updated, I'm just reading the highlight. Okay,
And so they are prioritized too, the action teams were asked to, you know, a really difficult task of trying to look at these goals and prioritize them. And so this does reflect what the order of priority too, as you look at them.
How many goals did end up happening?
So there's 5 different areas.
Yeah.
And each one has roughly, I think, 5 goals. They might all differ just a little bit. We can look and see how much infrastructure has its generally around that.
Is there like a table of contents, like here's the 5 things, here's
So you'll get
how many
them
pages?
exactly, so you'll get them in each of the different areas. So you'll get infrastructure, there's not really an index to them, except that they're separate files. So infrastructure and transportation is one, and so they are separated by topical areas. And each of them have roughly 5, maybe.
Yeah,
in
But you mean
counties,
the whole comp plan, the whole comp plan?
Yeah, like if this is what, you know, a rough draft of what we're gonna present,
This is the final draft.
Pieces.
this is a fine, okay.
this one's final.
This is the final
and so
draft.
with each of those goals, those are listed in importance, right?
They're set by priority.
Okay.
They're set by priority, and this will be then put into our implementation plan.
Is each one of those action items like it's dependent on the previous one? Is that how the action items work?
Not necessarily.
Not yet, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, the final document will have an index.
Okay.
And these will be an appendix in the index.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, the plan itself. I thought maybe you meant the way we were gonna, but they'll be in.
Okay,
Yeah, just as we rolled out kind of how to use the, in our first round, there'll be really clear direction and being able to pick up the comp plan and get to where you need to go pretty quickly,
right.
depending on what your purpose is in doing it. So there's gonna be like really great direction in there if you're picking it up to do development review, if you're picking it up as a developer, as you know, as a
Yeah,
a community member with interest in
someone
different
wanting to
areas.
like start a business, or you know, like, hey, is this something recreationally that if it's in there, I know I've got a lot better of a chance of getting permits approved or whatever, you know, like.
Exactly, yeah.
One other question on this. So I noticed that the timeline, the short, I believe, is 1 to 3 years, mid was 3 to 5, long 5+, and then you had ongoing. These goals, they are the 5 things that are being worked on collectively at one time, but they're not dependent on goal 2 starting as soon as goal 1 is finished.
Right, not necessarily, because they do have different timelines.
Yeah.
Some of them are dependent on funding, to be able to leverage funding in order to, but they are, they look at different timelines to help, but and back up to the top.
Follow up,
Yeah,
the growth in land use one,
yeah.
so.
This one is not quite in the final draft yet. I don't know if we've put that yet, but so this is what it looks like before, obviously that those elements have been added in.
Same layout.
Yeah. So this is a rougher draft. This isn't our quite final draft of this particular area. So what we're hoping to do is we think we're very close to the final, and we're hoping to have them complete before we send it out to you. So we may have just the one for now, but I think we're really listening, so.
It's a long strategy, isn't it?
Yeah. The grow where we've already invested makes sense, does it say anywhere that this primarily relates to the residential aspect of things? I feel like commercial, industrial, we don't have anything, so to expand that,
But we
there's
do,
no-
we have the airport.
But I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about, it's like, we don't have power, we don't have,
Right, no,
or
that's
it's
true.
not three-phase anyway.
Right, the strategy is encouraging infill and redevelopment in already serviced areas to strengthen.
Which is gonna be critical for Lake County and Leadville in general, just where
Yeah.
water and sewer are is where development needs to be pushed. But
Yeah,
where it can go,
yeah, sewer especially, is that
of course.
a hard spot?
But you're right, that's one of the reasons that,
And part of what we're doing too is looking at our growth plan is a new statutory requirement. So EPS is doing that green field development fiscal impact analysis versus infill. So they're looking at the cost analysis of that to kind of help inform development as well.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
I was just curious if there was some component of this that focused on residential, but it doesn't sound like it. I just wonder if saying we only wanna focus on what's already has the infrastructure there, if that somehow makes it harder for us to move forward with an industrial park at the airport, because it doesn't have the infrastructure it needs up there.
Oh, that's a great question. Just like if we got in it doesn't preclude you from approving a subdivision that, is outlying in the county. It's just prioritizing, that as one of the strategies. So it doesn't preclude it from being, a development that you could approve and.
yeah, if you had a developer that wanted to fast track or wanted concessions, then
Right.
pushing them in this direction, but somebody who wants to do it on their own can do whatever they want.
What my concern is that, is it more appealing to get congressionally directed spending or other types of grant dollars or anything for a project that we wanna do as a county or that we wanna get moving? Is it more appealing if there's some verbiage in your comprehensive development plan that supports that?
Yes, absolutely.
And there is,
So-
in our economy section in particular, the
Okay.
airport industrial park very specifically
Okay,
is
cool.
identified.
Cool, all I'm saying is what I read up there is sort of a little bit of the opposite, so I just wanna make sure that there is something in there we can point to when we're like, hey, can you guys help us with money for this thing, here it is right there in our comp plan.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
cool.
there.
Yeah,
Is-
it's important, that's crucial. If
Yeah.
it's not mentioned in your comp plan, it potentially is much harder to get
Okay.
funding for.
I do have a question about your point. You said that if a developer wanted to do a neighborhood, that this doesn't preclude them, we just have other priorities. Does that mean if there are other priorities that, someone shows up and says they wanna do something, well, the answer is it's lower on the priority list because we're focusing elsewhere per the comp plan, does that in effect inadvertently preclude them?
No, it doesn't preclude them because zoning, you still have your ability to develop under your underlying zoning. So if a development comes in and it meets, zoning where it wants to do a PUD and it negotiates out certain community benefits, it doesn't preclude any of those things.
Right.
From being able to be considered, as long as it's consistent with the zoning.
Now, if they come in and they're asking for special concessions and tax incentives and things like that, then there's a pathway that makes it more palatable to the county. But if you have the money and you wanna do it on your own and you're following the rules, you can do whatever you want.
So I'm getting to.
And Andy, I would say the airport industrial park, there is water and sewer, you know, not at the property, but that could be extended to the property, that
Yeah.
within district.
Adjacent areas, so, you know, this is basically saying the same thing, for building adjacent to the city. And, you know, and our comp plan says that right now, it's desirable to, you know, develop areas that are adjacent to the city that are more walkable, more connected. So just building on that and giving us more depth to it and more actionable items. One thing our last comp plan did not do is it didn't give any of this implementation to it at all. So, you know, when we were going back and kind of holding ourselves accountable for what have we accomplished on the comp plan, some of those things just simply, you know, some things we had achieved. But it wasn't even really defined of like who was the lead on some of the things. It was pretty ambiguous. So, you know, this will really help. And once you put these things together, and it will be a pretty big lift, but make your comments and just because we're talking about certain things, in one area doesn't necessarily preclude that they won't be coming up somewhere else. So, you know, this is more history-based items. This is walkable, connected neighborhoods with strong trails and sidewalk linkages. So this is an overlap with our transportation,
Love that.
right? So there will be alignment, and in some places we've looked at, you know, where is a land use strategy or a growth strategy that we can do to continue this. So we've got some of those overlaps, right? And so we're looking at from different lenses how we can implement different strategies to achieve similar goals throughout the plan. So you'll start seeing those. And so then this gets more into establishing clear expectations for development in rural unincorporated Lake County. So where we say that it's good to encourage development that's connected, we also talk about what happens when we start moving out into more rural areas. So it does, you would talk about a little bit, and then what do we need when we go out into these rural areas? What do we need to think about critical lands and protecting areas that could be impacted from higher density development and things like that. And so it's a real mix. As you go through, you'll see that a lot of different things are covered, everything from some area planning and Twin Lakes and kind of what we might end up calling as a kind of rural node in that Balltown area. And so it's really designed to, some things will feel kind of city-centric, and you'll see those as being city
It's nice
themes.
that you've listed responsible parties,
Yeah,
just like listing, you know, potential funding sources. I think that's important because that'll help drive.
right. It'll get us
Help
really
drive action.
positioned for those
Accountability.
funding opportunities and create, you know, better success of implementation. But as you go through this, you know, you'll see that it's really designed to speak out land use and growth, both in the city and the county. And then where are those intersecting areas that we overlap, and what kind of strategies do we do in those areas? You'll see that in the mapping exercise that we're working on right now. So Heather's working with us too on creating our future land use map. And that creates kind of really great visual that kind of ties those land use types. We consider zoning, and we kind of bring these goals in, and that's one other tool that we use to bring everything together. But yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm scrolling through this a little bit fast. I just wanted to show that, you know, as you look through each of the areas, it really does kind of bring the city and the county together in a very comprehensive model. Hence the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan. So it will be, the next one is a bigger lift. We won't be giving feedback on this until April 10th. So this is designed for that April 6th meeting. We'll make sure that we get the Teams invite out of there. It is our standard Zoom meeting for the 6th. So we'll be responding to the information for this by the 30th, for our round 2, one that we're in tonight, where we're talking about,
The comments you made tonight,
the
comment on the 30th.
yeah, so we'll make sure that those are included. And I think we can probably stop sharing this right now.
Yeah, Jason, did you want to add anything?
Or not?
Not at this point, but yeah, not at this
Okay. Yeah, what about Matt? Matt, do you want to, any comments or questions at this point?
No, not right now, thanks.
Great. Josh, do you have anything for us from, this is important also that we have the county manager's office providing feedback on all of these.
Yeah, no, nothing additional from my end. I did have a chance to review everything when you sent it out earlier, and so nothing formal to add.
Great, thank you. So wonderful. We will take the comments that we received this evening and incorporate those, as Melissa said, on the 30th. And we'll start preparing the next round, the biggest lift. We'll talk about it on April 6th and get your comments and thoughts back on that. But really, like, if you were going to be using this plan tomorrow and you had a land use decision in front of you, how easy is it to implement? And is something unclear? And looking at that implementation action plan, what does that look like? And does it make sense to you?
That's great, nice work. Sorry for clarification, are we meeting also again on the 30th?
No.
Or just everything's submitted?
Right.
Okay.
The next meeting
It's a
date
deadline
is,
for us.
Got it,
not you.
okay,
next meeting date is April 6th.
okay.
So we'll meet on the 6th and we'll take care of deadlines, getting the communication back into the project. We have a project meeting tomorrow that will just be also sharing this information with them then too. So you continue to reach out, and we do anticipate that maybe you will all have some questions when we roll out this next part of the review. So reach out anytime or start creating a parking lot of questions and thoughts. And we'll anticipate that April 6th will really be diving in to that.
To look at our maps.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have our maps very close to being done as well. So,
That's great.
okay, I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
If that's it, we will adjourn at 5:03 PM.